So, it's the summer break. Yes, we are already 11 races into the season, and with 2 weeks of summer break ahead, I figured it would be an ideal moment to do a mid-season report to see how the drivers who have switched teams have fared and do a bit of an analysis on their overall performances. Keep in mind, this is a heavily opinionated video. I just want to make clear that I respect every single driver apart from one, and the stuff they do week in and week out is nothing short of godlike. The talent these 19 drivers have is truly something to be humbled by. The scale I'll be using puts 10 as perfect driving, 5 as average, and 1 as horrible. So if any driver gets, say, a 6 out of 10, it just means he's been slightly above average, but nothing too outrageous. Perez has not had the best of starts, but with a car known for being tricky, he has done pretty much what he was hired to do. The first race was never going to be the best, but he still managed to get P5. In Imola, he did screw it up big time when he spun, but he backed it up race after race from then on, not finishing outside the top 5 until the Austrian Grand Prix, managing to still get P6 even with some dodgy stewarding to sugarcoat it. Although his defending left us all with a sour taste of mouth, the penalty given to Norris set precedent for the rest of the race, and he had to take 2 penalties. Still, not a bad result. Let us not forget he took his maiden win in a Red Bull car, the only driver to win for 2 different teams since 2014, at Baku. The last 2 races though haven't been anything to write home about, with a spin and retirement on the sprint race at the British Grand Prix, meaning he had to do all the work from scratch on Sunday, and when he had just barely made it into the top 10, he was told to pit to steal the fastest lap away from Hamilton, finishing P17. On Hungary, he qualified a great P4, right behind his teammate, but was unfortunately sideswiped by Bottas in an attempt to get a strike while playing bowling with F1 cars. Overall rating, 8 out of 10. Carlos's move to Ferrari was one of the most unexpected moves, and as you can see by the 2 videos I've made on the topic, link there up in the right corner in the iCard, it's given me a lot to talk about. As unpopular as my latest one has been, I still truly believe that Sainz has been the dark horse of the 2021 season. For those of you who don't know what that means, here is the definition. Coming into what is clearly Leclerc's team, he was thought of as a seat warmer before testing, but oh how wrong was everyone proven. He has been on the pace from the get-go, qualifying near and having more pace than Leclerc on Sunday. He's been given the short end of the stick on strategy multiple times, but he's shrugged it off. He's always stayed close to his teammate across all the races, and has been recently making some races his own, with Monaco, Styria, Austria and Hungary coming to mind. Overall, I think he's exceeded expectation, and has once again showed us what he can do. In a car he's had no input building on a team that is not famous for being able to manage 2 cars at the same time. Overall rating, 9 out of 10. Now, this is quite a weird one. I've been tempted to do a whole video on Daniel, but I didn't know if I had enough to say. Plus, I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but now it's been half a season, so the time for excuses is truly over. I was quite excited to see Daniel move to McLaren, and if you ask me, I thought it would be a slight improvement over Carlos Sainz. But race after race, he's just proven that hasn't been the case, at least so far. Many have pointed to the fact that Ricciardo has been driving with a quite low revving Renault power unit strapped to the back of his car, both at Red Bull and at Renault, and that a switch to the higher revving Mercedes was the issue, but we're 11 races in. Others pointed to a change in the aero concept maybe being a bit too much when compared to last year's yellow car, but we are 11 races in. We know the team is not a problem. If this would have happened in 2015, we would have pointed at the team and think it might be part of a lack of support. But this is Brown's McLaren we're talking about. It's the marshmallow cotton candy equivalent of team support, so that is out too. We've seen some glimpses of performance across the season, and we can say that comparing him to Lando might be a bit much, seeing how he's absolutely extracting the maximum out of the MCL 35M. But when we see that his best result was a single P5 finish of where he was over 10 seconds behind his teammate, and the fact that he's being swallowed by the back of the midfield in the standings, with less than half of McLaren's points this season, it really makes us wonder how long until he becomes in sync or someone decides to call it quits there. Overall rating 4 out of 10. After a 2-season absence, we saw Fernando return to F1, this time with Alpine for good measure, the team that he pushed to 2 world titles and whose rebrand still keeps the original's DNA. Critics were soon to point out his lack of pace at preseason, and not much hope was had by a big number of people coming into the year. But the fans knew that under a small coat of rust, the same Fernando we all knew was lurking. His comeback was cut short after a sandwich wrapper made him retire from the Bahrain Grand Prix, where he was in the chance for points. The next few races were quiet. He was outraced and outqualified by Ocon, and he didn't put excuses. He said he was just slow. At first a lack of balance and then a lack of pace. It would all change from Baku on though. The Azerbaijani street circuit had already showed a good fit for the Spaniard in previous seasons, like when he recovered all the way up to P7 from a double puncture and a hole in the floor in 2018. He had been having a quiet race but nailed the restart after Verstappen's crash, leading to his best finishing position since he returned, 6th. After that, he not only scored in the next 5 races, but now holds the longest running point streak. He outraced his teammate in every race since, with the exception of Hungary. And then, after Bottas thought he was playing burnout, he got his turn under the spotlight. He did what he always does then, drive the hell out of the car. We could truly see Alonso was back because although he got kinda screwed at the start, after he got past the Latifi train, he started cutting back seconds after seconds after seconds, keeping the gap to the Ferrari in front and closing the gap to the top 2. If it wasn't for Hamilton, he may have even won the damn thing, but after some amazing defending, he finished P5. Or P4, the final reeling on Vettel's fuel situation hasn't come out yet. Overall rating so far, 9 out of 10. Vettel has been in a sort of return to self phase in the past few months. After his bitter breakup with Ferrari left an F1-shaped hole in his heart, he decided to go do a little of soul searching and went for Aston Martin. The car though wasn't as good as anyone was hoping for. After having had the best midfield car last year, Racing Point rebranded and the shot in the dark they had made started to show its ugly side. The RP20 borrowed significantly from the 2019 Mercedes in the closest thing to a get-rich-quick scheme we have seen in quite a few years. It was meant to be a decent car to put them out of harm's way for the transition 2020 season that wasn't meant to be dragged on to 2021. Enter the new regulations, and with the cutback on the floor, the 2 most hurt teams were the ones with the glider philosophy, Mercedes and Aston Martin. While the first ones threw money at the problem and developed their way back to the front from preseason to the Bahrain Grand Prix, Aston just couldn't. The midfield has separated into 2 parts and they seem to be leading the back pack though, consisting of Alpine, AlphaTauri and yes, Aston Martin. With this in mind, his first driving green didn't go as expected. Some dodgy driving made him crash, handed him a penalty and finished P15. At Imola, a bad qualifying plus some brake issues on the formation lap saw him starting from the pit lane, and after a decent race, gearbox issues made him retire. Still, he managed to reel in the confidence and by Monaco he was in sync with the car, managing to finish P5 at the Monegasque circuit, and taking a 2nd place finish the following weekend at Baku. That being said, he didn't have much luck in Austria, with Kimi taking him out at the last lap when fighting for the last point, and a P12 finish after the Styrian Grand Prix weekend, ahead of Daniel Ricciardo's McLaren though. He spun in Great Britain and retired on lap 20 due to overheating, but when we got to Hungary, we saw him get, let's be honest, extremely lucky and promoted up to P2 after a clean start, where he stayed the whole race. Now, P2 would be an amazing result, but now look at the car that was in front of it. For an Aston Martin not to be able to overtake the slower Alpine in 70 laps is quite a letdown. Nevertheless, he made a clean, safe, close and error-free race. Now, is he going to keep that P2? Whether that happens or not, it doesn't detract from the great performance he had. Overall rating, 7 out of 10. I don't know about you, but I had great hopes for Yuki before the season started. He scored points on his F1 debut, which was great, but then he was inconsistent at best, downright bad at worst. At Imola, his quali crash red flagged the session. A spin on Sunday left him 12th at the flag. He was just off the pace at Portugal, retired with electric issues in Spain and qualified P16 in Monaco, where he stayed through the whole race. Granted, they were a grand total of 2 overtakes in Monaco and he is a rookie, so I'll cut him some slack. In Azerbaijan though, he had a good race, and P13 was a good result at France after starting from the pit lane due to, yes, again crashing on Saturday. Britain and Hungary were 2 quiet races for the Japanese where he got some solid points, but as of now he sits just at 36% of his teammates' points. Again, he's a rookie and that's why I graded him 5 out of 10. Now there isn't much to say about Schumacher, to be honest. He's at the back of the grid, so as long as he's beating his teammate, he's doing fine in my eyes. His accidents have cost Haas more than any other driver though, and some races he just hasn't been on the pace. As I've said before, with 5 out of 10 being average, I think it's fair to score him a 6. So those have been my... Oh, what? Oh, there's another driver that I'm missing? Ah yeah, completely forgot about Voldemort. Okay, 2 out of 10. Anyway, these have been my mid-season ratings for the drivers that have switched teams. This is long enough, imagine if I had done one for the whole grid. If you enjoyed, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and as always, I will see you all next time.